Okay, good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Santa Barbara Local Agency Formation Commission meeting for Tuesday, April 13th, 2017. It's now 1 o'clock. And if we could have roll call, please.
Commissioner Seves?
Here.
Commissioner Geyer? Here. Commissioner Hartman? Here. Commissioner Iskanian? Here. Commissioner Lavanino? Here. Commissioner Morehouse? Here. Commissioner Richardson? Here. Commissioner Stark? Here. Commissioner Waterfield? Here. Commissioner Welp? Here. Commissioner Wolf? Let the record reflect that Commissioner Wolf is absent.
Okay, would everybody stand, please? Pledge of allegiance. Mr. Richardson, would you lead us, please?
Put your hand over your heart and repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. It is baseball season, and Mr. Orrick's not here, so we'll just say play ball for him, right? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of March 2nd and the special meeting of March 13th? It's moved and seconded. Any discussion? No discussion? All in favor?
Well, if we're going to approve them together, I was not at the special meeting.
Okay, so we'll show
So I'll abstain from the special meeting.
for 2 on the special meeting.
I will abstain from the March 13th meeting as well. I was not in attendance.
Okay, 3 abstentions? That's right. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Okay, at this time, is a public comment for those persons desiring to address the commission on items not on today's agenda. Do we have any speaker slips?
Chair Seves and members of the Commission, we have no request to speak on general public comment today.
All right. The consent calendar. Any members wish to approve, to pull any item on the consent calendar? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent calendar? It's moved and seconded. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It passed. Okay, now for the public's information, we have changes of organization, item number 1, which is the Beach Club Drive annexation. That item is being pulled. So if you hear for that item, we will not be hearing that item today. It'll probably be back in the June meeting. Okay, item number 1 is pulled to the June meeting.
Do we have anybody down in Santa Barbara that's there to testify on that? Nope.
Okay, you're on here on business item number 1.
Yes, if there's any questions on item 1, but it's my understanding you've just pulled it, so I guess I'll be back next month.
Yes, sir. Well, actually, we're going to bring it back in June.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to, we need a motion and second to, even though we didn't call it? Okay, may I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we pull the item and move it to our June meeting.
June meeting. All right, it's moved and seconded. Is there discussion on that motion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Let's move to business item number 2. I'm
Chair-
sorry, change of organization number 2.
Chair Seves and members of the Commission, change of organization item number 2 is to consider recommendations regarding LAFCO application 17-04 for La Cumbre Golf and Country Club annexation to the Goleta Sanitary District.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Hood, LAFCO Executive Officer. I have a brief PowerPoint presentation on this this annexation, this change of organization. And if I can get it up on the screen. So in terms of the application, this is, I'm sure, familiar to your commission because the property owners by petition have filed an application to annex this territory to the Goleta Sanitary District. It was the subject of a out-of-agency service agreement back in 2014, waiting for a pending lot line adjustment to provide services that were going to be provided to a tennis facility and fitness center on the site. The out-of-agency service agreement was a temporary solution to allow services to be provided pending the lot line adjustment that would define the area that needed to be annexed. It's within the sphere of influence, and I've given you a couple of maps that you are in your packet. Planning and land use and zoning is zoned for recreation. There'll be no zoning changes as a result of the annexation, and it's within the sphere of influence and contiguous to the district, as I mentioned. There is a plan for services that the same level and range of services would be provided by the district as to other properties within the district, and it's categorically exempt from CEQA. And so in conclusion, I'm going to make this one brief because I know the next one will probably make up for the brevity of this. I would recommend that you approve the annexation, gave you some options, and find that the proposal is exempt and subject to conditions that it would be funded the same way that any territory that's within the district is funded, and waive conducting authority proceedings because the annexing agency and the landowner have given consent to this. And we're going to add an Exhibit B to the resolution. Exhibit A is a vicinity map, Exhibit B is an annexation map. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Before we go to the commission, Ms. Hartman, just to let you know, you are the voting member until Commissioner Wolf shows up.
Oh, here she is.
And that was a short-lived. Okay, any questions to staff from the commission? No questions to the staff. Do we have any speaker slips on this?
Chair Seves and members of the commission, we have one request to speak, and that is Alex Bennett.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Alex Bennett. I'm with Heal the Ocean, and we would like to voice our support for this annexation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. That's the way to do it when we get to the next item, really short and sweet. Okay, anything further from staff?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Commission deliberation? Is there a motion to approve? Okay, it's moved and seconded. And also, just a reminder, when you vote, make sure your mic's on so everybody can hear you. So moved and seconded for the approval as staff recommendation. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay.
Chair Seves and members of the commission, change of organization item number 3 is to consider recommendations regarding LAFCO application 17-01 for the formation of the Los Olivos Community Services District.
Okay, Mr. Hood, before you get started, let me just let everybody know the way I'm going to handle this portion of the meeting so you can anticipate when to come before us. We'll start off with the staff presentation. The commission will then have the opportunity to ask staff questions. The proponent will then have 10 minutes to come up and address the commission, at which time the commission will have an opportunity to ask you questions. We'll go into public comment at that point, and if you want to just come up and do a real short one again, I'll give you a minute, so you can come up and get and go back and sit down. Those who want to do a minute first, come up. If not, you can get the full 3 minutes that you're allocated. After that, the proponents will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. Then staff will give staff an opportunity for rebuttal, at which time we'll go back to the commission for questions and then deliberation. Okay, so with that, we'll start with Mr. Hood.
Get the PowerPoint. think I clicked it a couple of times, so trying to get the PowerPoint up. So basically, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know this is an item of great interest to the folks in the audience, so I'll spend a little more time than I usually do on the PowerPoint and trying to explain the situation. Except it's not coming up. There it is. The applicants in this for the formation of this community services district in Los Olivos are the registered voters, and it's a petition that was signed by 42.5% of the registered voters. 25% is the minimum requirement to initiate an application. The district is comprised of approximately 441 acres and is located in the center of the San Ynez Valley in the Los Olivos census tract. And it's at the intersection of Highway 151 and Figueroa Mountain Road. And the formation petition is including the Los Olivos Special Problems Area as designated by the Board of Supervisors of Santa Barbara County. The purpose of the district, the formation of the district, is to collect, treat, and dispose of sewage, wastewater, and recycled water and stormwater in the same manner as a sanitary district. So it has the same authority as a sanitary district. The purpose of the district is to maintain local control while complying with the regulatory actions arising from groundwater quality problems created by individual septic tanks. Currently, the community is served by septic tanks, including the commercial areas. Formation of the district is a requirement of the local agency management plan. It's not a requirement, but there needs to be a way to eliminate contamination and treatment of the sewage disposal that is currently disposed of by septics. And one of the ways to do that is to form a district that can place a wastewater treatment and collection system in place, and thereby abandoning the septic tanks that are causing problems in the area. And this is a state requirement that the LAMP program complies with the State Water Quality Control Board's policy for disposing of wastewater. The formation of the district would be conditioned in my staff report on approval of a special tax to fund administrative functions. There's a couple of ways to do it. One is a special tax that requires a 2/3 vote, and the other is an assessment district. Usually at the time of formation of districts, and I've formed many of these districts, CSDs and other types of districts, the voters vote on the special tax at the same time of the election for the formation of the district and to elect directors of the board of directors. So up to $200,000 a year is adequate for administrative functions. The Berkson Associates Plan for Services discusses the amount of money that would be needed initially and at build out. And so the $200,000 is the maximum amount that the special tax could levy. Additionally, there in the study that talks about the actual construction and of the wastewater treatment plant and disposal system, there's a multi-million-dollar Proposition 218 election that would be needed to fund the wastewater treatment and collection. That would be following the formation of the district and approval of the special tax when the board of directors is in place, if it's approved by your commission. The boundaries, as I mentioned, are the special problems area, and that was the initial boundary that was submitted with the petition. There's a number of small commercial establishments, but majority of the land uses are residential. However, there are areas that are within the agricultural land use designation as well as the inter-rural area that's designated within the county general plan. And I know this is pretty hard to see, but most people in the audience have looked at this boundary of the special problems area, and that is the one that's included in the San Ynez Valley Community Plan. We had feedback from the Department of Planning and Development that recommends an amendment to the boundary to delete the inter-rural, rural, and rural areas as well as the ag parcels from the proposed CSD boundaries and sphere of influence. And until such steps have been reviewed and approved by the county pursuant to the appropriate general plan and zoning code considerations, what this means is that because the rural and agricultural lands would not be able to be developed to density that would most probably need services from the district as far as wastewater collection and treatment, the planning and building is recommending that these be left out. And again, this was included in your staff report, but is a Los Olivos land use map that if you've had a chance to look at it, it would delete the areas that are zoned ag and rural lands, particularly the area that's north of Highway 154 that is kind of a logical boundary. So here's the map that's included by the applicants, and they have agreed to amend the boundaries, and we can, I can't blow it up, but if you want to take a closer look, it really mirrors the zoning maps to leave out the ag and rural land designations. So this would be my recommended CSD boundary. So we may need to take a closer look at that, but that is a map that we've looked at very closely with planning and development, and legal counsel and I have looked at this as well as far as lands that should be included. The area that's, let's see, let me go back again.
So Exhibit A was the initial proposed,
Yes,
and Exhibit B
Put your mic on,
is the recommended boundary.
taking out what the county wants to take out?
Right. Taking out what's zoned for anything that's not, that's residential but not agricultural or rural lands.
Piecemeal.
Mr. Chair, could I ask a typographical question?
Go ahead.
Is the correct designation, is it inner rural or inter-rural? The county's letters, the county's letter refers to them interchangeably, so I don't know which is right. They say
Notice that.
two spellings in one sentence.
What are you trying to say, Shane? Both of them are acceptable. I'm
That-
just kidding. I don't know.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Morehouse, there's an Exhibit B to the staff report. That's not now the recommended boundaries by Mr. Hood. Did we hand out a hard copy of this? We might have to run a quick copy of what was shown on the PowerPoint screen that reflects the,
We're going to take a. You want to continue with your presentation, and then we'll get the maps copied for everybody.
Yeah. So basically, what we've looked at is, I don't know why this is changing back. Okay, so over the past few months, we've looked at various options for governance. First of all, forming a CSD, which is the option that you're looking at today. Secondly is annexation to the Santa Ynez Community Services District. We had an application to amend the sphere of influence, which will be followed by an application to annex the area. And just as a side note, the district, Santa Ynez CSD, agreed to last month to take, if you will, a back seat until this application is processed. So that's why we didn't have both applications on the agenda today. There's also an option for a county service area that the county could set up to do the same function that the CSD or the new CSD or the Santa Ynez CSD. However, in talking with staff, they would prefer that the independent district be formed rather than having the county get involved in this issue. And then lastly, the Santa Ynez River Water Conservation District is also interested in lending its authority, if necessary, to developing the treatment and collection system. They provide water service to the area and would have a latent power that would need to be activated by LAFCO to provide wastewater treatment. So there was some questions, I guess, from people about the formation process. First of all, there's a petition that needs to be filed, which is what happened, at least 25%, the registered voters. There's a LAFCO hearing, which is taking place today, April 13th. If the application is approved, there's a protest hearing that would be held after the 30-day reconsideration period has run. And in the absence of majority protests, the formation would go to an election. And if a majority of the votes cast in the formation election approve the formation, and elect the board of directors and approve the special tax, then the district is formed after the election. My understanding is that the election would be a mailed ballot election. So it would not need to be delayed for a general election or a special election, a primary election, for instance. It could be conducted by mailed ballot, and that would shorten the time frame considerably. There was also some questions about the formation timeline, and I have to thank the members of the Reclamation Committee, Lisa particularly, developed this timeline, hard to see on the screen, but it talks about how long it takes to form a district. We're at the third drop-down where the LAFCO commission hearing is being held. The protest hearing, as I mentioned, could be held as soon as May. Elections could be set in June, and the district could be completed by July, August. Again, as I mentioned, the proposal is only to form a community services district that provides the collection, treatment, disposal of wastewater, sewage, reclaimed water, and so on. CSDs have a wide variety of services, at least 20, 25 services that they can provide, but to activate any additional services beyond this service outlined in 61-100B, collection, treatment, and disposal of sewage, they need to come back to LAFCO. And there would need to be a plan for services provided. There would need to be a financing mechanism to add any services, for instance, fire protection or road maintenance, that kind of thing, to this district. And so that would be a latent power that would require commission approval. Financing, we have the consultant in the audience, Burks and Associates, came up with a first-year operational cost of about $110,000 that would be financed by the residential unit equivalent special tax. It's not just a flat tax, it's a special tax, and I'll talk about the amendment to the resolution a little bit later. And the cost of build-out to run the district administratively would be about $189,000, which is $376 per residential unit, or $31 a month at build-out, $24 at the first-year cost per residential unit per month. The AECOM report was also incorporated into the record, and your commission has had a chance to review this on several occasions. They estimate in the report that the land purchase cost would be $688,000. Construction cost is $14,900,000, closely, pretty much $15 million. Additional project costs, $5.2 million. And the total cost of constructing, the capital cost of constructing the sewage treatment and collection facility is about $20 million, $21 million. In my staff report, I mentioned I transposed the 0 and the 9, so overestimated the cost in the staff report by $10 million, and somebody actually noticed that. So I would make that correction at this point. It's $21 million, not $29 million. So in conclusion, my thoughts on this, and your commission may want to ask questions about it. But the application is filed with the commission to form the district. It was signed by 42.5% of the registered voters. I think they were attempting to get at least 50%, but they decided to file the application and get moving along with the application. The past few months, the community has looked at the LAMP requirements, Local Agency Management Plan requirements, and the State Water Board's quality control policy for siting, design, and operation of water facilities. And they've decided that they want to move ahead, at least the applicants, rather than upgrade to advanced septic systems, which could be in the 30 to 40,000 range to replace the systems that they have now when they fail. Not, immediately, but when they fail. So in the March 2nd meeting, we looked at a request from the San Ynez CSD to delay their sphere of influence requirement, and you directed staff to proceed with this application, which I'm presenting to you today. But bearing in mind, if the CSD formation is not successful, the options that I discussed previously are still available for the community. One is to go with the sphere of influence annexation to the San Ynez CSD. The county could become involved, and the San Ynez Water Conservation District could also be involved. So I'm going to, at this point, talk about resolution revision language. I'd like Bill to kind of talk about that. We had some discussion, and I apologize for presenting this to you at kind of a late date, but there's some different requirements that are outside of what I initially recommended.
So the resolution, Roman numeral 5, right now reads approval by the voters within the district of a special tax as follows. That stays the same. Paragraph A, setting the maximum annual special tax amount at $200,000, that stays the same. The next paragraph, saying that the tax may be levied for any fiscal year shall be determined by a majority vote of the Board of Directors. That stays the same, so we're okay through A and B. C will be amended to read as follows. The first sentence starts out the same, but it's a little bit different. The special tax shall be applied equally to each legal lot within the district, except that unimproved property may be taxed at a lower rate than improved property. So I'll read that again. But when I'm reading it, it's right out of the statute under the CSD statute. This is a requirement of law. It's Government Code Section 61121. And again, I would read it. And we can copy this and hand it out so you can consider it further. But the special tax shall be applied equally to each lot within the district, except that unimproved property shall be taxed at a lower rate than improved property. And that's a departure from the original language that suggested the tax would be based on assessed value. Assessed value taxes are not allowed under the the Community Services District Act. It requires a tax that's uniformly applied. And then D has the same intent as before, except that it's meant to provide for a termination of the tax if there's a Prop 218 assessment later to fund the construction of the facilities. Well, the proponents envision that also then taking over the funding of the services to be provided for administration. And the tax up above an A, that $200,000 is for administrative costs the first year or two. But on the Prop 218 election, it now reads, the district's authority to levy a tax shall terminate once the district successfully adopts an assessment pursuant to Article 13D, Section 6 of the California Constitution, parenthetical Prop 218, to generate revenue sufficient to fund its administrative costs through charges other than the tax. So again, that just, once the Prop 218 election is held and passed, and that's the big election to also fund the $21 million project, the administrative costs will be folded in there as well. So once that kicks in, there will not be a need to continue the tax, and they would instead collect it all through the Prop 218 proceeds as a fee. And the proponents have seen this language and they agree to it.
Commissioner Wolf.
Thank you. Mr. Dillon, you noted that A and B were the same, but actually A seems to be different than what was in the application and the PowerPoint that we just saw, in that it now reads that the maximum annual special tax shall be $200,000, whereas in the application and in the background that Mr. Hood just read to us on, I think it's page 3, it says pursuant to the petition, the amount up to $200,000 is adequate. So that was actually going to be a question of mine because I wasn't really happy with the up to amount. So I think the fact that it's now designated as shall, and it is a specific number of 200,000, is a good modification. But I just wanted to draw that out, that I think is another good change that's noted. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, just a brief comment.
Hold on, Mr. Guyer.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to affirm that
Put your-
the special tax then sunsets when the 218 tax comes in. Okay.
I was just, Mr. Chairman, I was just going to mention that the second, right after the discussion of the special tax, it shall be up to, and it's actually set for any fiscal year by a majority vote of the Board of Directors of the district. So it could be, it doesn't necessarily need to be 200,000. In fact, I think they're going to speak to the fact that if they get donations or some people were willing to pay part of the initial administrative costs, that they wouldn't need to do that. And the first year of operation, again, is much less than 200,000. It's a little over 100,000. So we wouldn't expect that they would levy the full amount first year, but at build out, it could be 200,000.
Well, then I don't understand why it says that it shall be 200,000. If I was reading this as a voter, that's what I would expect, that we would be assessed up to that the district would be assessed 200,000. Now, the fact that you're saying there might be donations and so forth, that's great, but so I think it really needs to be clarified.
It says the maximum annual amount. So my reading of that, when I drafted this language, and I took this from the application, is the maximum annual special tax authorized by the district shall be 200,000. So my intention was that it could be less.
Okay, well, that's not how I read it.
Okay.
Because the way it was written in the application was up to, and that implies that it could be less. But when it says shall be, that doesn't, in my opinion, I mean, obviously there's different language here, so I think we really need to be clear if we mean up to, or do we mean shall be 200,000? Because it's different in our presentation.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Wolf, I'm just looking at the resolution that's attached to the staff report, and I don't see any changes in paragraph A. I don't know if a different version floated around since then, but what I read a minute, or actually referred to a minute ago, is the same language that's right now in the draft resolution attached to the staff report. And paragraph A is the authorization of the tax of $200,000. In paragraph B, the board of directors of any district that has taxing authority still has to levy that tax every year. It doesn't automatically occur if they don't take board action. So what the voters would have to do is approve the tax of $200,000. That's the authorization. It gets them around the Prop 13 requirements. And then each year they could assess or levy, excuse me, levy being a term of art, up to $200,000 in taxes. And I think what Mr. Hood is saying, the first year, they don't anticipate needing more than $110,000. But for purposes of the ballot measure and the tax, that's going to be a $200,000 authorization. And that's not up to, that's